He has a 1-1 count. That one struck high. Left side. That one's going. That's out of here off the ropes. You have got to be kidding me. Fireworks. Here you go. Welcome on and welcome all inside the reaction show here on IAbaseball. And as we always hopefully you're doing great out there, enjoying life as we get ready to talk about the reaction from the Substate Finals, 3A and 4A. That's where we're going here and right now. Of course, Kate Nissen and myself talking all about our reactions, things that happened, again, all the things we liked that we saw from yesterday's action. Again, that was the 3A, 4A Substate Finals, as we now have every field set, 1A through 4A. It's all there. The final 8 teams in each class are now battling it out. And man, this has been a good one. We got the chance to broadcast a game as well, a Substate final game. Kate, I know you were at one as well. There was no shortage of excitement, and I can't wait to dive into this one. But this was a very, I want to say, it's been one of the better ones in years, despite what we've seen in recent years. So I think it was an electric atmosphere, no matter where you went yesterday.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you got to talk about the marathon games too. We had a handful of games that felt like going into extra innings being decided in the waning innings, and that's what's fun. And at the end of the day, we've got 2 fields in Class 3A and 4A with a lot of ranked teams, a lot of teams with a lot of wins, and it's just a really good field in both classes, and should be a ton of fun in Cedar Rapids.
Oh, no doubt. We'll be there. Again, we'll be covering all the state tournament coverage here across multiple venues. And again, if you get the chance, give us a shout out and more. What do you see? What do you like? What do you know? All that kind of jazz. We'd love to talk with you as well. But let's dive right into it, Kate. I think this was a very interesting. Again, I say interesting, man. It was certainly something that I'll always remember. We'll go substate by substate here. We're going to start with substate 1 and 3A, move to 8, and then we'll go from 4A1 all the way to 4A substate 8. A lot to like here. And again, if you were a fan of some extra innings, Cade, you mentioned you get that right off the bat with Class 3A. Bishop Heelan, they go ahead and they take the win 8-7 over Sergeant Bluff Lewis Central here. And it happened in kind of the way in which it had to happen for Bishop Heelan, right? The walk-off double here by Bleeker, his 11th double of the season, and they're off to their 20th state tournament appearance, first since 2019. I looked at this, Kate, and I went, this is the most even matchup I feel out of all of the sub-state finals in 3A. All of them were tough. Everyone deserved to be there for sure. But this is a team that these 2 teams have battled it out. And, I mean, they've had, 65 games against each other dating back to the 08-09 season. This one, again, they've been neck and neck pretty much for the most part. But Bishop Heelan, they walk away with their 8th 20-plus win season aside from COVID. 8th straight, I should say, aside from COVID. And I liked what I saw. Obviously, you got Lefevre, you got Bleeker in there. I also would not go ahead and overlook Raiden Erickson. He's been a mainstay behind the dish, and he's been eating up some good innings on the mound for Bishop Heelan. And, of course, you got to give a shout-out to Schaefer at short. He has been doing phenomenal work. We got to see him as well. And I think this is an eclectic group, and they made it happen here. And I think this was one where they wish they had it last year, but I think they regain it this year.
Yeah, and it took them, I mean, both their last 2 games took walk-offs to get to the state tournament, and now here they are entering as a 4 seed, 5 seed right in the middle. And, I mean, you're looking at the innings pitched, and you're looking at team team ERAs, team what each team is bringing in pitching wise, and I think Heelan in Class 3A, you could argue, has one of, if not the best, uh, pitching rotations, pitching staffs heading into this tournament.
Yeah.
I think that's not something crazy to say, looking at the numbers and looking at how they've performed. So not only did they get in, but they're a massive threat in this field, and I'm not doubting the Crusaders at all. Even though it took them one run in each of the last two games to get here, this still is a very dangerous team, and they're well deserved to be here, and they've been a mainstay in our top 10 for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, and rightfully so. Still dinging on the Class 3A ranker for putting him 15th as we started the year. But hey, he'll get over it. We all will, for sure. They're into the state tournament. But now we move on over into Substate 2 here. And gosh, I don't know. Cade, you've been pretty high in North Polk here as we bring that logo up. But North Polk they've been a strong team for quite some time. They've made a lot of moves here. Ultimately, I think they found a way to be, this season anyway, to be a team that wins no matter what. They won their sub-state final with just 4 hits, and which is crazy to think about. And in the end, they make their 15th state tournament appearance. But you know what? And we'll get into this when it comes up into our state tournament bracket predictions here. But I got to say, this has been a team on a route here, Cade. From Drew Owen, who 17th in the class, I believe, with 70 total bases. And you mentioned a lot of guys, Zotsky and, of course, Ragi, Cook. Those guys have helped. And I think that this is kind of where we start to look and see the turnover here in terms of, this is a North Polk team that has been the bridesmaid 5 different times. They've been left at the state title game without a win 5 times across their entire program history, and that included last year. They were so close to winning it all, and I know they want to get back there here, Cade. They got a good group, though, to make it happen, and there was a familiar face that we got to see back rocking it here for North Polk. I'm glad that we got to see everybody in full force.
Yeah, no, honestly, that's the big story here. Hunter Cook has been out for a while now, dealing with an injury he had at the Prangy, I believe, and now I didn't know if he was going to be back, and I saw his name thrown, so I'm really happy for him that he was able to get back. And I'm not going to lie, I doubted the Comets. I thought this was a really tough sub-state. I thought Algona had a really good chance to get out of this, and obviously it proved that they were a massive threat to North Polk as Ulrich and Slagle and Garmin and all those guys. It's a really good team that they took down. But North Polk, I mean, the Cardiac Comets, they've done it time and time again. They find ways to win in the end. I know Zosky had a bases clearing double at one point in the game, and they rallied to get one more in the 5th, 6th, 7th, just late in that game. They just found ways to win, and now they enter in as a 2 seed, and it's just deja vu all over again. I mean, we talked about Heelan having the best pitching staff. Well, if it's not Heelan, it's North Polk, because North Polk, they're going to bring in that dangerous 1-2 that no one's going to want to see. And North Polk, they've got that they've got the experience. They've been there. They've won multiple games last year. Yeah. They're facing a Harlan team that's also been there last year, so that's going to be an interesting matchup of 2 teams with experience. So North Polk, they're in, and they've got to be one of the favorites if you're predicting who you think is going to win it all, because this team is a threat, and they're here for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, great season for them, and they've put together a resume that proves it. Right, there's no doubt that North Polk is one of the top echelon teams in 3A, if not the state. They've a great schedule. Coach Josky has done, again, wonders, and he is just a great part of a great community. So absolutely love what they've got going on there as well. But now let's move on to Substate 3 here, Cade, and the winner of that, not who you initially thought, not who I initially thought, but I've been high on this team, the best nickname, the best named team, I think, across the 3A slate. The Stormin' Pointers have rocked their way, and you know what? It took quite a bit for them to do so. They went up, they earned their way to the sub-state final, but this was the first time they have won against Western Dubuque in over 15 years. this was a long time coming. Shout out to Carter Andrews, putting the Storm Pointers up ahead late there. He had a 2-run single to help give what at the time was a 3-2 lead, but my gosh, I gotta say, I have been high on this team ever since we got to see them play against Marion. In 2 games, they could have won both of those 2 games against Marion. Oddly enough, who did they face here in the state tournament? Marion. So, yeah, however it pans out, hard to beat a team 3 times. I'm just going to say that. I'm all on board with the Storm and Pointers, man. I've loved it. I love Antis and Wiley. They have both been a great pitching duo. And we got to see them. I will say Wiley getting the chance. He ended 1 game, turned around, started the next game in a doubleheader. These guys just ball out there on the mound, and I think that although history hasn't been with them against Marion, I think that they have a good shot here. CPU is one of those teams that really just hangs around, and kudos, because you take a look at their pitching staff. Again, I'm going to go back to pitching here. You look at what happened with Western Dubuque. You saw Goodman, Quagliano, McDermott, the mainstays in their lineup, not get a hit. Right? That was where the meat of their lineup did not get a hit. You saw, obviously, Brett White. He's always going to do some damage. He got a hit there, but in the end, this was a team that put up, again, 7+ runs, or 7+ hits, I should say, against Western Dubuque, and they didn't allow much. In the end, how do you win? You don't allow the hits and runs, and then you provide the hits and the runs offensively. So, yeah, the fact that the heart and the meat of that Western Dubuque lineup, which, again, put up, 18 against Cedar Rapids Kennedy? I mean, you go ahead and you do what you did there. I think you are now a legitimate contender to be into the state tournament. Now, again, you also have to factor in history here, but I think this was a heck of an outing here. I love what CPU brings to the table. I've been high on them ever since we got to see them. And, I think they're going to go far. I like what they got here, Cade.
Yeah, Bound's telling me 19-1 Western Dubuque historically against Center Point Urbana. Obviously, the one being last night. So pretty incredible stuff. And it took until the very last inning. I saw the video on Twitter of the dog pile. Really, really cool stuff. It's a team that I can't say I know a lot about, Andrew. I know you've got to see them. I haven't. I'm super excited to. Obviously, they've got some star power, and I mean they're bringing in 29 wins. That's the 4th most wins in this field, and they earned the 6th seed. And like you said, they got a matchup that they're very familiar with. So it's going to be a matter of who's adjusting and how you can change since you last saw them. And I think it's a different Center Point Urbana team, obviously, from when Marion last saw them. This is a team that's playing really well. They relatively cruise through their substate. Besides this one against Western Dubuque, obviously, so they're playing really good ball and they're ready to go. And I'm excited to check out the Storm and Pointers. Like you said, the best nickname in the 3A field.
Gotta love it. Hey, I have been I'm always a big fan of the obscure stuff. You are as well. Some of the things that again, love the nickname. Don't change that. I will say they've got what I believe to be, and I'll put it out there on their social media, but I believe it to be, if you've ever watched Savannah Bananas and the Party Animals. The Party Animals always had that bright pink bat, and I have spotted that bright pink bat in a CPU dugout. And it was swung here. I'll go ahead and get that up here. Hopefully we can get the Party Animals to, get something rocking with them here. But that's really cool. Love the fact that all that comes into play as well. But now let's move on as we continue to rock and roll here. Again, brought to you by the great folks at Hitting Approach. Check them out today at hittingapproach.com. Again, for all the great tips, tricks, more. Again, that includes getting all the graphs, spreadsheets, charts, and a whole lot more right after the game is done. That's truly that simple. Hitting Approach. Hittingapproach.com. Hey, you can put it on almost any type of device. It's cost effective, goes with any device. It's an app, guys. It can go from bullpen sessions, hitting sessions, and more. All you got to do is check them out today at hittingapproach.com. Now moving on to Substate 4 and the Golden Eagles. if I can get this to maximize out there. Yes, the Waller Catholic Golden Eagles, they end up taking the win here in that, again, what was for them a shutout. Not many times do you get the chance to shut out somebody for a sub-state final berth or for a sub-state final game and a berth to the state tournament. But I I am on board with Coach Tisch and the rest of this Eagle squad. You know, this is the 10th state tournament appearance for them, Cade. And I think a name that I have spoken so much this year, and I still don't think enough people are behind this guy, and that's Foti Regopoulos, is the man. I've seen him now in 2 of his 4 complete games. That's right. He has gone 7 innings 4 times. He has almost gotten that several other times. That's really unheard of at this point. Fourth complete game of the year, 6 strikeouts, and they do what they do. I mean, this has been win 13 for them in the last 15 outings, and I think what we have to get into the mix here is that this is a complete team here, Cade. If I had to pick, this would be one of my favorites to win it all because they're a complete team. And because the fact that in the sub-state final, 5 of their 3 hits were doubles. So what does that tell you? They can do it. They can strike hot. We've already seen what they can do against top 4A teams. I don't know if too many people can match holistically what they bring. Again, anything can happen in the state tournament, but gosh, I like the Golden Eagles.
Yeah, pretty interesting too. I mean, close games against Makokata and Mount Vernon, then Clear Creek Amana in the sub-state final. They relatively cruised. I know it was 1-0 going into the 5th. They put some on late, but no, this team entered the postseason with the number 1 target on their back. I mean, this is the number 1 team in Class 3A in this field. There's no doubt about that. Now, whether they finish on top, there's a lot to discuss there. But at this point, this is the best team in Class 3A, and they've earned that 1 seed. And obviously, no game is going to be easy, but this team is set up. They've got pitching. They throw strikes. They don't give you free passes, and obviously they put the bat to ball, and they can slug. And I mean, like you said, this is a fun team, and they're relatively youthful. I mean, they're not a lineup full of seniors. This is a team that's going to return a lot. I know we're not talking about next year, but just in terms of experience wise, this is a great experience for them entering this postseason with the number one spot on their back and holding it down and getting to this point. So excited to see what kind of run they can go on here.
Yeah, from Brandon Kummer, JP Elbert. I mean, they've got a lineup that's just hard to beat and really, really fun to see these guys again just ball out. And it's again such a fun time. So if you get the chance, I urge anybody into next season, check these guys out. They do a fantastic job at that. And again, Kate, I think that you're right. I think they are holistically one of the better teams. And we'll see how, again, we just have to see how things end up panning out. But certainly, this is a very, very, very strong team as well. But now, moving on to the team that they will be playing here come state tournament time. Oh boy, that was a big one. Sorry, folks. My graphics got away from me here just a bit, Cade, and I always love it when that happens. But one thing that I like here is the fact that Central DeWitt comes in, and they are the ones that end up taking the win here over Davenport Assumption in the Substate 5 final. And I got to say, I'm on board with them yet again. I know that they dropped off in the rankings here, but one of the things that when you look at the pedigree of a program, Central DeWitt baseball has had a good pedigree over the last, 5-6 years. I mean, take a look at this here, Cade. Over the last 6 years, including this year, state tournament. Last year, sub-state final loss to Wahlert. The year before that, sub-state final loss to Marion. Before that, sub-state final loss to West Delaware. And then you have a state tournament title game loss to Xavier, as well as another sub-state final game loss to Marion. So they have been knocking on the door each of the last 6 seasons, including this one. They have been at a sub-state final or they have been to state. They have been on fire here. And again, for the 5th time, they get to grace the state tournament. And I think it's great. In the end, this was an Assumption team that you saw, that I saw, that we were both really high on. They were very consistent. And I got to say that it is, I don't know if it's the month of July or just the later months of the year which kind of do it. Ultimately, Central DeWitt is 7-3 against Assumption in the month of July or later. And they've just kind of balled out. A big shout out to him. Their wins leader went the distance, the complete game, 4 strikeouts, but 3 hits allowed is really what stood out to me in that game. And it was, it kind of got out of hand early. Earlier on in the season, both these teams split, and it was kind of opposites. One game it took all the way into the last 2 innings for Assumption to win. And then, likewise, on the other end, Central DeWitt, they won early in game 1 of that. So ultimately, what I'm getting at is this was a game in which I did not expect this outcome, but I'm not necessarily surprised with Central DeWitt making it.
No, I mean, I don't think it's a team that either was pegged coming out of that just because of how they kind of stumbled on the stretch. But I mean, this is a really experienced team. I mean, you talk about like a yin and yang thing with this 1A matchup. The 1 seed is the youthful team, and the 8 seed is the team bringing in 9 seniors leading their team in hits. So it's a really experienced group. You know that they're going to be well composed under the bright lights. On that night game in Veterans Memorial at the Colonel Stadium. So they're bringing that, and that's what they've got over Wahlert is a more senior led team. And so it's going to be interesting to see the matchup there. But like you said, Bixby, Gregoire, Adams. I mean, this team's going to be ready to go, and obviously they took down a really good Assumption team, and that's not easy to do, and it's not a lot of things teams can say. So this team earned a spot, and the Sabres are no doubt a threat.
Yeah, and again, speaking about big threats here, as we go ahead and bring you the Marion Wolves, they are back into the state tournament, another consecutive year for them. It's been pretty fun to watch this team. I will say, I don't, gosh, I don't like to say, man, one year I have a lot of really great coaches in the state tournament, but you get that here. Coach Fish is one of my all-time favorite coaches in 3A. Coach Tischer as well. I mean, gosh, and of course we'll get to more of some of my all-time favorite coaches as well here. But Marion, okay, they punched their ticket in, and this has kind of been a mainstay recently, right? I mean, ever since they were the Indians on the, they won it on the final day. They were the Indians, and they're looking to get back to that. Isaac Scott, a complete game outing for him. Very impressive. Had a double, had a stolen base. I think the one guy that I've talked about before, a guy that's, I mean, among guys like Trey Frank, Isaiah Scott, and others that have really been impactful, Grayson Kirsch, he's their home runs leader. But, man, he's the guy that, against CPU, ended game 1 in one swing of the bat. This is, again, a guy who can impact the lineup wherever he puts it. I think Coach Fish has a great utility here in Kirsch to put him wherever in the lineup. And if something's going on, if someone's not quite having the greatest time, you can shuffle things around. I think he has a lot of versatility despite some youth and some experience. I like it, though. I mean, in the end, eighth state tournament appearance for them, Cade. And there's more to meets the eye than even just what I said. They're a really good team here.
Yeah, they just play good ball. I mean, they're preseason #1 for a reason. Obviously, they're going to enter here as the 3 seed, but I mean, that's just comparing apples to apples. I mean, this team is well experienced, and this is another. I think we have 4 teams returning from last year's field in Class 3A, and this is one of them. 31 wins, 5 losses. That's no slouch. They got a tough opening matchup though with a team that they've seen multiple times and played really close games with. But it's nothing new to Marion. I mean, they beat Gilbert just 3-0. They beat Xavier 3-2. I mean, this team is well equipped to win those close games, and I mean, you can expect something along those lines there at the Colonel Stadium in this Class 3A quarterfinal. So should be a ton of fun. Now Marion, again, another team. I mean, every team here is a threat. There's no doubt about that. But Marion, especially, a nice balance of youth and leadership, and they've got plenty of guys that can change the game on one swing.
Oh, no doubt about that. Again, great coaching, Great fit. And again, ladies and gentlemen, give your thoughts here. Let us know. Again, on our Hitting Approach hotline, let us give us all the thoughts and more. But now we move on to the next team that will be rocking it here in Pella. They get the chance here again across the Substate 7 look. They took down the Grinnell Tigers in order to capture their ticket into the state tournament again. This is their fifth and second since 2022. So they had the gap year, right? You got to go through the college experience, get the gap year out of the way, and they did that here. They get back into the state tournament here. And I think it was really fitting, Cade. And I say that because, last time that they made the state tournament, one of the teams that they had to go through in, I believe it was Substate final, if I'm not mistaken, but at least the postseason was Grinnell. And so this is kind of, back to familiarity with them. Again, a former conference foe in the Little Hawkeye, Grinnell now with the WAMAC. But, it's just something that again, you got to give big shout out to Pella. Again, 4 out of the last 6, they have taken over Grinnell. They have done what they need to do against a really good team. Again, 2 top 10 or 2 top 15 teams, I should say, battling out. And, from Kettler to Hoekstra, I know you've talked about Hoekstra before. What he's been able to do on the mound is just stellar. But gosh, I love the legacies that we got going on. Nathan Carey, Anderson Sherm. I mean, a lot of guys who know baseball well, and I think that really played a big part into just knowing your situational baseball, what the outcomes may be from that, how to really represent yourself in that. And I think they did a phenomenal job. In the end, they take it and they take the big win. I like Pella. They got into our rankings right about just over midway, if I'm not mistaken, through the season. It's been hard to keep them off even from the get-go. And so, this is a team that I think, Kate, I want to say you can't overlook them, but I don't think anyone is. But at the same time, like you said, it's such a stacked field. Somebody's got to be on the lower end of things. I don't think Pell is necessarily there. I don't necessarily think Central DeWitt is an 8 seed, but things have to go where they lie, and somebody's got to be that. But I think Pella could be that sneaky team that ends up taking it.
Yeah, and they bring in a roster with 0 seniors on it. I mean, this is a team that's going to be well equipped for next year as well. I mean, again, that's not something that matters right now, but it's a youthful team. Again, yeah, I got to see Tegan Huckshaw throw against DCG, and he threw really well. He allowed 1 run off the swing of Tatum Gray, and besides that, it was nothing from him. I didn't even realize he was a sophomore at the time, which proves him even more impressive. He lefty, throws hard, throws a lot of strikes. I mean, strikeout to walk ratio of 67 to 13 is impressive, and I'm going to bet that's who you're going to see in that opening round matchup. But they got star power as well. I mean, Isaiah Kettler is one of the premier names in all of Class 3A and all of the state of Iowa, so we get to see him on the bright stage. And then you got to shout out Anderson Sherm. I love following him. He's doing daily vlogs on his Instagram every single day, showing his workouts and his daily routine. So that's been a ton of fun. I can't wait to talk to him about that at the state tournament. But no, I mean, it's a 5 seed. This is the team right smack dab in the middle of the field, and I mean, everyone's a threat. And that game with Heelan, I'm guessing, is going to be pretty low scoring based on the pitching we're going to see in that one. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Again, Hoekstra as well as Kettler, 2 of our top 100. And again, if you get the chance, hit up Rockfin, our top 100 list. You'll be able to catch up on all the guys that have made big impacts and still have a lot of room yet to make some big impacts as we get rolling along here. But again, now as we start to wind down our Class 3A look, I got to say I'm not necessarily surprised to see the Harlan Cyclones get the chance to get in. They managed to do so against a familiar foe, again with it being Lewis Central. But, Cade, I'm going to say that I'm really surprised. I know a lot of people are at this point. The fact that the Cyclones just needed 5 innings. They end up taking a 10-0 win over Lewis Central. And, mind you, this was a Lewis Central team that was now been one of just 3 teams in the state to take down DCG. And we saw at DCG has done all season long. So it really is kind of crazy how baseball works, in which you can just dominate one game and then turn around the next game and you just can't get anything offensively. Braden Ertz, a 5 inning complete game shutout. Yeah, I mean, give credit where credit is due here. Harlan, they've had some games, man, that was just kind of tough. I've been high on them simply because I think that in the end they can last the test of time, which they have. And this is a team I know. I know they're not at the same mark. They've had some guys depart from when they started, but this is still a very impactful lineup, and I like it top to bottom. Pitching staff is pretty solid there as well. I think that in the matchup, I think you bring what you do against that you did in the Substate final. I don't know if a lot of people are going to be able to touch you to do much against you. Then again, this is the state tournament, so you're just leveling up in competition. But again, Braden Ertz, 5 inning complete game shutout, 5 Ks. I think this was one again we saw a potential of happening, Cade, but I don't think anyone would have guessed that it would have been in this fashion.
Yeah, that was a loaded sub-state, and Harlan comes out of it, and I mean they're well deserving of the spot. It's going to be interesting. Last year they were kind of in the same spot, 7, 8 seed in the state tournament. Went out to Western Dubuque. Here they are getting another really tough draw in North Polk in one of the higher seeds. It's going to be interesting to see the guys that were on that team last year, what kind of experience they bring. But it's a team that we don't really know a ton about. They lost a decent amount last year. They were turning some key pieces, and I mean, at the end of the day, it's a 7 seed. They're bringing in 27 wins, and we've got a field where each team is bringing in at least 25. So it's proving the depth of the field. Harlan was up there in the Hawkeye 10 race a lot of the time, and here they are. I mean, it's one game scenarios. You're 7 innings or less, I guess, away from making a mark and moving on to the semifinals. So it's just a matter of who's got it that night. And I mean, that's an 11:30 game, and you never know who's going to wake up for those early morning quarterfinal games. And it very well could be Harlan. I wouldn't be surprised. So that one should be intriguing.
Yeah, gosh, it's going to be fun. I love how the Hawkeye 10 is just kind of beat themselves up, and to the point where I think you're just so battle tested coming into it. I agree with you. A lot of question marks, but they're answering them. So again, kudos to what Harlan's doing. With that wraps up our Class 3A slate here. And again, it's been a heck of a 3A slate. Again, I absolutely love what's going on. I love what they're, and again, this is brought to you in part by the great folks at Hitting Approach. So make sure to check them out at hittingapproach.com today. Again, made by coaches for coaches. Check them out. It's a great thing. Hey, let's move on here, Cade. And I got to say, I got to give props to you. And you mentioned to me that it would be not a high-scoring game between Waukee and Sioux City North. And you pegged it perfectly, man. A 1-0 win in the end. Waukee advances. I will say, Coach Dirks, after last year getting a milestone victory mark for him, and also getting to be in amongst the Hall of Fame members, getting a big award for him at the Coaches Clinic earlier this year. This is kind of, I think he is one of the better coaches out there. I love Coach Dirks. And, Waukee's, everything's going up for them, right? Everything's turned on up because they got a new field. They're making the most of it, and they're back in the state tournament here. And I got to say, props to Sioux City North here on this one. I will say props to the North Stars because, man, this was tough, right? Their pitching depth certainly wasn't as strong as we thought coming into the season. Shrunk, I will say, is one of the more fantastic pitchers to watch in 4A. I wish we would get 4 more years of him, Cade. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. That's not going to happen here. But ultimately, the sub-state final, Waukee they did what they needed to do, right? And I like where they're at right now. Completely different team from when we saw them last time in the state tournament. But my gosh, I think they're just as impactful. And I will say, once again, kudos. I mean, you had a really down year last year comparatively, and how did they answer? Well, they come out and now they're in the state tournament here.
Yeah, Grant Sorensen too. I mean, he's quietly bringing in one of the better pitching resumes that you can have in this field. I mean, 50 innings, ERA 1.25, a WHIP below one. Uh, teams are only hitting 193 against him, and obviously he's pitching the CIML night in and night out, so that just proves it even more. And last night against Sioux City North, there was a complete game, one hitter with 9 Ks. So he was just overly dominant, 0 walks in that game too. So Waukee, I mean, they draw a relatively low seed. I mean, a 7 seed for Waukee. I mean, this is a team that was up towards the top of the CIML at many points this year. They draw the night game with City High. That one's going to be one to mark down. I mean, Waukee, they're bringing in one of the better pitching staffs that you can have in Class 4. And if it's not Sorensen, it's Billings, Danielson, Turpin, Moore. I mean, this team's bringing in a staff ERA of 2.5, and that's extremely impressive. The bats might not be overly powering. I mean, 252 team average, but they still got guys that can hurt you, and you got to be careful with them. So it's intriguing. I was kind of surprised to see a 7 seed from Waukee, but here they are, and you're in one game scenarios now, and you got Colonel's Veteran Stadium under the lights. So what more can you ask for if you're Waukee?
Oh my gosh, that is, the moment that the state brackets were sealed, I instantly went to that pitching matchup. Again, we'll dive into that later here, but that's going to be one of the more fantastic pitching matchups, and I love the fact that we get it right out of the gates. Speaking it right out of the gates, we get a repeat matchup here, Cade, in the state tournament, and it includes Dallas Center Grimes, the Mustangs. They punched their second straight ticket. They've been in 4A just 2 years, but what have they done? Oh, that's right. 2 consecutive state tournament berths. They're back, and they've got Gray with them. I mean, you've got a guy who can single-handedly, as he has done many times this year, he can change the outcome of a game so easily. Again, ultimately, they did not allow a single run defensively. So throughout the postseason so far, I should say. So there is that to say that we go ahead and are high on the offense, but from Keaton Fenn and company in there, who I would peg Fenn to be one of those to go ahead and start. Again, could be wrong, but certainly that would be really cool to see him start the season and then go ahead and continue on late in the season at the state tournament here. But the Mustangs, they did what they needed to do. What a game it was for them against Sioux City East. That's a tough team. Coach Miller is always going to bring the Black Raiders to really strong. They're going to do what they need to do, but in the end, I think that DCG learned from their loss against Lewis Central. They put up 11 hits, and gosh, you look at all that was going on. They just had 2 extra base hits, including that home run by Gray, which no surprise that happened. So it was an offensive explosion. I think you got to give kudos to the Black Raiders to keeping it at 6 runs. That could have been a whole lot worse. In the end, again, you got to give the pitching a lot of credit here for the Mustangs. Again, Perrin, Fenn, the combo going out there doing what they need to do. And again, Fenn with yet another win, 7 strikeouts on the day. I like him. I know that other people might dog on the fact that they haven't played as much 4A opponent, but I think, Kate, in the grand scheme, more 4A opponents will be into their mix along with their conference slate. So not necessarily worried about that, but I don't know what more DCG has to prove here.
Well, yeah, and it's a rematch, which I think is fun. We're not going to get too much into the bracket itself, but if you're talking pitching matchups, this might be the best one right here with DCG and Dowling, guessing on who's going to go here. But now Fenn, I mean, he's at 99K. He's 1 away from 100. Not a lot of guys can say that. And in Class 4A, the offense plays. It's just a matter of going out and playing the way they can. And last year, I mean, it was an extremely close loss. That was a really competitive game between DCG and Dowling. I don't think they've seen each other this year at all, but no, it's going to be a ton of fun. I always like going and checking out DCG. They just had 1 inning that kind of blew up on them, a 5-run inning for the Mustangs. Really put that one away, and then it was just cruise control right now. With this pitching staff, they just do such an excellent job at not giving up anything for free. The defense plays well behind their arms, and it's a team that plays really well together. They've got a good culture there, and I always enjoy checking them out. And they're bringing in the most wins in this field, so should be a ton of fun. DCG 3 seed. Yeah, I mean, not much more to say. That's a really good team, and we expected them to be here.
Yeah, and it's speaking of expectations to be here. What do we have here with the next team to make it in as we continue down the bracket? Look, is the Johnston Dragons as they get their ticket punched yet again. Looking for a three-peat here. Go the Dragons. They're not the number 1, 2, or 3 seed, but I think anyway. Kate, I think at some point you could put them as the 8 seed, and we'd still be everyone would still be really worried about that matchup here. Johnston, I'll give credit to Cedar Falls. Cedar Falls has had an up and down year, but my goodness, was that a game for the ages? In the end, a 1-0 win. I love defensive thrillers. They're ultimately my favorite. And again, it was one hit, a sacrifice fly that ended up bringing in the run. And again, I think you and I talked about this several times here, Cade, that gosh, it doesn't necessarily matter what's going on in the first 3 innings. Is in the end, if you can come out with the win, you do. Johnston has always been that team that sits there and they may not get out to the gates real quick in some games like this one, but they stick around and they continually put themselves in position to win. They had the risk edge, the runners in scoring position edge over in that game. In the end, they punched their ticket, man. There's not much more to say than they are a tried and true. And at some point, if the Johnston Dragons manage to go ahead and capture a third, we got to start giving them a more of a dynasty talk here. Again, that'll be later on in which we go, but this has been a team that's now constantly in the mix and constantly in the conversation for a title. I like what they did here this year. That was a little bit more under the radar than they've been in the past, but okay, they've answered the questions. Almost a whole entirely revamped pitching staff. And which, by the way, I got to give a shout out to Kemmer for going the distance here with 6 strikeouts. But a lot of new faces there. They managed to answer those questions and then some.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, everyone's saying it's a different Johnson team, and it's not the same year. I mean, they're bringing in a 33-5 record, and it's just more about the few teams ahead of them that have had exceptional years as well. I mean, they're entering as the 4 seed, but last year Johnson entered the postseason as a 3-4 seed, whatever it was, and just the few teams ahead of them lost, and it opened the gates for Johnson to be a top dog heading in that state tournament. And this year it doesn't. And they've got 3 teams seated ahead of them. That doesn't matter to Johnson. I think it's impressive. I think it's impressive when you can win, when things are going your way. But I think it says even more when you're able to win when it just seems like nothing's going your way. And Johnson, for 12 innings, it seemed like really just couldn't get anything going. And there were times, especially in extras, where Cedar Falls was threatening, and McConnell was able to get out of jams, and Kemmer was able to get out of jams, and Cade Ogden. I mean, he's just had an incredible year for them.
Yeah.
If you would have said Cade Ogden was starting the substate, final before this year, it might have caught your attention. But here he is, 39 innings and an ERA of 0.89. So this is a team, like you said, they're going to be ready. Coach Varda and company are just they're just going to be ready for anything, and on any given night, especially in the sport of baseball, anything can happen. And on this particular night, it took them 13 innings and almost 2 full games to win a game 1-0. So I mean, I'm sure that's a first. I was following on Twitter the whole way. Just what an incredible scene, and here they are back again with the CML matchup against Waukee Northwest. Should be a ton of fun. And Johnson, I mean, you can't sleep on them until they're out at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's truly either you can't. If you do, you'll get dinged. So many teams have done that in the past, and here we sit. Speaking of teams that have constantly been in the mix and have dinged other teams in the past, dinged our predictions this time around will be none other than Dowling Catholic as we bring their mark up here. Dowling Catholic, I think this is the biggest surprise. I'm going to go ahead and say it, of the state tournament. what, 15 plus Ks for Baumler on the mound. Uh, Again, he has been dominant this postseason. He did what he needed to do, but Cade, don't look now, but the Dowling Catholic Maroons have not given up a run in the postseason. It's been just methodical pitching, great defense, and it hasn't always been the flashiest with the offense, but doesn't need to be. I mean, it was a pitching duel against Centennial, and you know what? My heart goes out to Centennial. Another strong year for them that will not end in the state tournament, but you got to win the games, right? You got to earn it. You got to win and punch your ticket the right way. Dowling, who a lot of people, and I'll say it, including myself, I didn't know if they would get past Ames. They did that. I didn't know if they would make it past Centennial. And in the end, it's their pitching that really outshined. And again, Baumler being a big part of that. 10 plus Ks for him, as I mentioned. He was absolutely stellar in that game, Cade. And that's how you got to win against Centennial. You got to put up your best. And no, I mean, there's several, I should say, Dowling haters out there. But at this point, how can you be, right? Maybe just a little perturbed that they keep making it. But then again, go ahead to talk to Centennials of the world and say, hey, beat them. Because right now, the Maroons are just not they're just not stoppable, and it's been a huge postseason push for them.
Yeah, 1-0, 4-0, and 2-0 in their playoffs kind of proves how Dowling. I don't know if they want to play that way, but it proves how they're effective. And the offense isn't going to blow you away by any means. They have threats, there's no doubt. But when they're playing well, the pitching is playing, and they're going to win those really tight games, those really tight, low scoring games. And they found a way to do that 3 times in this postseason. So here you go. I mean, Dowling DCG. We talked about DCG earlier. Rematch.
Yeah.
You're going to see Baumler going. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's what you're going to want for the Maroons. And like I said, you're 7 innings away from a ticket to the semifinals, and you can figure out your pitching then. But right now, it's one game scenarios. It's one game at a time. And I mean, back again, it's a fun rematch. It was a fun game last year, and I expect another fun game this year. So I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, and again, it was. I love the fact that I agree with you. I don't think they want to play that way, but what do great teams do? They end up finding ways to win, even if they're uncomfortable, right? And so that Dowling has done just that. Got to give them credit, and so again, a big kudos to what they were able to do, how they were able to do it, and beyond that. But also a team that has found a way to win is Cedar Rapids Kennedy here, as that one gets a little away with the shot there. But I love Cedar Rapids Kennedy here, Cade. Looking at this, I think this is a team that last year we're like, man, this is a destined team to be at state. And I know a lot of people were hoping that they wouldn't have any slips as they go into substate and into the substate and go into the substate final, and they didn't. This is arguably one of the hottest offenses in just the state. The most extra base hits out of any team, and I believe 4A, if not the state. And they've also, again, they a home runs leader. They can just blast things out here from Maher to Saltonworth. All those guys have been very, very impactful. This is a lineup, and again, 1 through 9, that it's just hard to kind of find where the chink in the armor may be here, Cade. And it's some thick armor, I tell you what. And again, overall, you got to love it, what they're doing here. And again, I think led by guys like Nolan Graw, Matthew Stoltenberg, as I mentioned, Durling. I mean, those guys, again, ultimately what you have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys with 30 or more hits. That is pretty stellar. Obviously, on the total base side, you got to love it. And again, Graw, one of the tops in the class in the state with 116 total bases. But, I mean, down the line from Owen Anderson, Ty Donnells, Lincoln Myers, Colton Durling, as I mentioned, guys that are also big, and we haven't talked about them as much. Big holistic team. I like where they're at. I mean, they're the top dog right now. I don't think they're taking it lightly here, though, Kate. I mean, this is a team that got upended and just a big upset last year. They made sure it didn't happen against North Scott, winning this one 5-1. But you got to like what they bring. And it's not a Cinderella story because they're the number one team, but it kind of has that feel, right? Because so many people have wanted this team with this group of guys, with the seniors that they have, to make it.
Yeah, and the trap game was here again in North Scott, and they threw a guy in Kai Smith who's a threat to everybody in the state, and Kennedy handled him. They put up 4 in the first on him, so it's not like it was an easy path. I mean, this was another game that could have easily gone sideways, and it was a game that I could see being a test. But when you got Mother throwing out there, I mean, the GM 7 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned, 11 Ks. I mean, he's just a workhorse out there on the hill, in the box, and yeah, I mean, going into this tournament, this is the best team in it. Like I said, with Waller in 3A, now if it ends like that, that's one thing. But at this point, this is the best team in Class 4, and we expected them to be here. I'm happy that they were able to get here and play in this tournament, like basically on their home turf. I mean, these Kennedy games. This is going to be a very pro Kennedy crowd, which is going to be a ton of fun to see
Yes.
that place packed for these guys. And they've got the 11:30 game against Pleasant Valley. So buckle up. It's gonna be electric right from the start on that Class 4A quarterfinal day, and it's well deserved. Kennedy made it here, and now it's time to go win a few games and capture a state title.
Yeah, again, just dominant. Love the fact that they get the home crowd because for so long that wasn't the case, right? They didn't get they had to travel a lot, and now they're saying, "Hey, finally, this side of the state gets a little bit of love here." And so gotta love where they sit right now. And um, Kate, I will go ahead and give you a round of applause for a prediction you had right out of the get go. You've gotten to see this team. You've loved from for their pitching staff, everything that's come with Waukee Northwest, the Wolves, man, the Wolves. Linn-Mar was a tough team this year. They were, especially towards the end of the season, the win streak that Linn-Mar had was just absolutely unreal. They were just on the ropes, doing really well. For the most part of the season, I guess I shouldn't say the last 4 or 5 games as they ended up going 1-4 in their last 5, but before that, some really big wins on the year, including Iowa City Liberty, Pleasant Valley, and others. So this was a Linn-Mar team that I thought, you know what, this could be it. But Waukee Northwest, man, they come out 26 wins and they score in almost all the innings. They just 2 innings in which they didn't put up at least one run. Right out of the gates, they shot quick and the shots landed right. So let's see, 5 runs in 3 innings is always going to be a tough hole to battle your way out of. And then the pitching here for the Wolves, it's just been fun, and I would certainly like to have seen, another battle between Waukee and Northwest here, just like we got the chance to see a couple of years ago. I understand that sometimes it doesn't fall in the cards. What we get here is a Waukee Northwest squad, though, Cade. That I mean, gosh, from Peterson and others, this from pitching staff to hitting, they may not be the flashiest here, but gosh, they seemed like a veteran team, and now they've had a good 5-game win streak going here. They're off and rocking. They may not have been the top team in the CIML, but what more can you say about the Wolves and what they've been able to produce? I think that again, you had pegged them as getting the upset, as getting there. So I got to give you credit where credit is due. But the Wolves, they punched their ticket yet again.
Yeah, I like the path for them. I think it's a tough path in this state tournament, but again, it's just like anything can happen in these 7 inning scenarios, and they're gonna have a guy, and Chris Peterson that's used to going out there and winning ball games for them. He's their wins leader, he's their innings pitch leader, strikeouts. He's right there too. He's got a WHIP below 1. They got Burdovich if they need him. But Milwaukee Northwest, like I said, nothing flashy. The average is 273. It's higher than last year, and we said last year that was the key for this team was to bring the bats just a little bit more because the pitching plays for the Wolves, and let they are they improved that just enough. They found ways to win games in the postseason, and here they are in the state tournament. So congrats to the Wolves, right in my backyard. Excited to go see them 2 o'clock against Johnson on that Tuesday, I believe.
Yeah. Again, we'll get that crowd usually goes well. It travels well. We gotta love what they bring to the table. So again, big kudos to Milwaukee Northwest as they go ahead 8-1 over Linn-Mar and they capture the win. And again, a very good outing for them. I guess a very great outing as they have continued to rock and go and just do what they need to do here, Cade. So again, as we continue along, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, that helping to bring us here, helping to bring all of this here is the great folks at Hitting Approach. Please make sure to check out hittingapproach.com today. They bring us our stat lines and a whole lot more. And there's a lot of things to like about what they bring to the table, from charts, spreadsheets, graphs, and more instantly once your game is done. It's simple. It couldn't be any simpler. In fact, and take your scouting to a whole new level. And all you got to do is hit them up at Hitting Approach at hittingapproach.com today. Get a free trial going. See what it's all about. From bullpen sessions, hitting sessions, and more, they've got you covered. Hitting Approach. Now, Cade, I got to say, a team that I have been high on, you have been high on. In fact, they got high in their name, and they're Iowa City High. This is a team that is rocking. They get their second straight ticket punched into the state tournament. What do you like about this team? What does this team bring that perhaps we don't see from other teams? And again, in their trip to make a not just another state tournament berth, but they're aiming for the big one here.
Yeah, this team's going to bring back experience. One of let's see, looks like another 4 teams that were there last year, and it was kind of a similar spot for City High last year. 2-7 matchup, I believe, was exactly the same case. They were the 2 seed over Ames, and it didn't go their way. So here they go again, night game again on that quarterfinal day. They're going to get a shot to kind of redeem what happened last year, and it went sideways last year. And they were an early exit, and I don't think they were expecting to be. And I remember talking to City High preseason that they were excited, and that if they got back here that they're going to bring a lot of poise and composure in this moment, because when you're under the lights in that quarterfinal game, it's another going to be a heavy City High crowd. I mean, you're 20 minutes, 30 minutes away from that stadium if you're in Iowa City, so it's going to be another massive crowd. The lights are going to be bright, and this team is going to be able to say that they've been in that moment, and they're going to be able to adjust and do what they can to win that game. It's going to be a fun one against Waukee. No slouch there. That's a tough 7 seed. But this team brings pitching. The bats are always the question mark with City High if they can put up enough runs. But with that pitching with Young and Schrader, they're going to be tough to score on.
Well, I agree. The trio of Schrader, Young, and Walschmidt. I mean, it truly. I think they have depth in there, and this is one of the matchups that has a lot of depth to the pitching. We're going to see a lot of that. I think what you get here is who gets the true hits, right? Who gets that first? Because I'll be honest, I don't think you're going to get a high strikeout game. I think what you're going to get is a lot of groundouts, a lot of flyouts. You're gonna have to have a lot of seeing eye singles and station to station baseball in order to come with this, and also some small ball along with that. Bunting does win sometimes, and I think both of these teams are not scared on doing that. They're very capable of handling a lot. We've already seen that, but this is an Iowa City High squad that has found so many ways to win close games and then also blow the doors wide open. Again, offensively, they might not be the flashiest, but like you said, you got a lot of guys who are just ground ball pitchers that can get those outs pretty easily. I got to say, defensively, this is one of the hottest teams that's entering the state tournament. So I do like City High. I think that their path, again, right out of the gates, not an easy one. Waukee's always going to bring something there. And again, veteran coaching staffs going at it yet again. So we could get a lot of good play here, and we'll end up seeing how this pans out. But again, Iowa City High, they're the ones who have punched their ticket. And speaking of punching their ticket, I did also want to give a shout out here to Pleasant Valley. Cade, this is a team that didn't that underperformed their expectations from what we thought and certainly what they thought they were capable of doing. But I will tell you right now, this has been their postseason run, perhaps one of the funnest to watch, and that included the second round matchup against Davenport North. Lincoln Dalton shut down who I thought was going to come out of this victorious. I thought that the Wildcats were going to come out because of the offense and the patience that they have. Lincoln Dalton went the distance and then some, and of course that pitching staff also showed well and how they were able to perform in extra innings. Again, this is one of the games in the Substate finals that took quite a while to get to a final, but they pulled through. And Coach Steckline is, again, I say it a lot, but one of my favorite coaches out there, and he has got this team right around 500 for a lot of the season, and they push through. And again, I love the story of record be darned. This is where we start empty 0-0. Let's go ahead and win, and they've done just that. Iowa City Liberty was a team that I honestly thought was going to go deep. I thought they were going to have a big run, and I was not going to be upset or surprised if they made the state tournament. But I say that because I think Liberty is one of the better pitching staffs in 4A, and I know we talked about a bunch of them already, but Pleasant Valley, give a kudos. They went up against a good pitching staff and they won. And I think that right now they may be one of the lower seeds, but Kate, I don't know how you can look at them and think anything of a huge threat. I mean, they truly are a huge threat.
Well, yeah, they're definitely the Cinderella of the field, but I don't know if a Cinderella can bring in 20 wins and technically be that. I mean,
Yeah,
this is a good team. They've got their ace ready to go. I mean, who's throwing that opening game against Kennedy, and it's going to be the sophomore in Lincoln Dalton, and he's been exceptional. I think we're going to work on getting some rankings out in terms of the field, but if I'm picking one guy in this whole field to go out there and start me a game amongst these 8 teams, it might just be Lincoln Dalton in Pleasant Valley. He's just been unreal. 62 innings, 81 Ks, an ERA and WHIP well below one, like not even close to one, like 0.67 and 0.59. This dude is unreal, and he doesn't walk you. Opponents are hitting 118 against him. I mean, what more do I got to say? Lincoln Dalton is legit, and the offense plays around him too. I mean, they're good with the timely hits. Hit 270 as a team, and I think what's more impressive is they found a way to beat Liberty without Dalton throwing. So it's not just Dalton; it's a squad. I don't have stats in for that game, but I was following on Twitter. I know Collingwood was nails out of the pen for them, and Taj Lyon is kind of the senior leader in that hill. Lincoln Dalton also adds 48 total base. I mean, this is a well-rounded team. With some youth and some experience. So Kennedy, I mean, they got to be ready to go at 11:30 a.m. And like I said, with the 3A game, those 11:30 games can be tough to wake up for. So Pleasant Valley gets going early. I mean, if they can scratch a few across, Lincoln Dalton can easily shut down a really good lineup for 7 innings. So it's one you got to tread carefully on, and you better beware of the wary in that one.
yeah, no doubt about that. Going to be a fun matchup here. Again, Dalton, not only their leader ace on the mound, also again with the bat leads the team with, as you mentioned, 48 total bases overall. He captures that one, and for a good reason. Again, this is a team destined to do a lot. We'll see how it ends up. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up our time here. Again, brought to you in part by the great folks at Hitting Approach. It's been great. This is a deep field here, Cade. I think from 3A to 4A, you're getting the cream of the crop right now, right? May not be the teams we initially thought, but these are the hottest teams right now across 3A and 4A. They're in there, they're ready, and it's about time for them to shine. And we'll be there. We'll show you them shining Again, we got some 11 o'clock games that start things off. And then, of course, we go throughout the day, 4 games across the slate for, again, all classes. And we'll give you that coverage here all across the IA Sports Network as well. But until then, again, a lot of stuff coming up on Rockfin, a lot of stuff coming up just overall as well. So hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, all that jazz. Check us out on Rockfin and help us support and highlight all the great players, athletes, and coaches that call baseball home here in 2024. So again, appreciate everybody coming along. Again, for Cade Nissen and myself, Andrew Brown. Give us your thoughts. And until we see each other next time, stay safe on the base pass.